because we are diving into some seriously cool research.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine a world where, like, you just think about typing
Mm-hmm.
and your thoughts appear on a screen.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about those clunky headsets we've seen before.
Right.
This is something totally different.
Absolutely.
It's called Brain 2 QWERTY.
Catch
It was developed by Meta AI researchers, and get this.
Okay.
This research is brand new, like February 2025 fresh.
Wow.
So we are really looking into the future of how we'll communicate.
That's incredible. What's really interesting to me is how they're doing it.
Yeah.
It's not like those invasive implants that need surgery and all that.
Right.
Brain 2 QWERTY uses non-invasive tech like EG and MEG.
So no drilling holes in your head,
Nope.
which I'm definitely okay with.
Much safer.
But how does it actually work? The paper mentions this
Oh, hey there. What's up?
In the beginning, can we summarize the main points of the paper and explain the key keywords like EEG and MEG?
Absolutely. I can definitely give you a quick rundown.
Yeah, let's get you up to speed.
Okay, so Brain 2 QWERTY is all about decoding your thoughts as you type.
It's using brain waves to figure out what you're typing on a keyboard.
And the key tech here is non-invasive EEG and MEG.
EEG measures electrical activity.
And MEG measures magnetic fields in your brain.
The goal is to help those who can't communicate easily.
Okay, so we've got that covered.
Now, where were we?
The paper mentions this 3-stage deep learning model.
Right. It's complex, but let me try to break it down. Think of the first stage.
Mm-hmm.
The convolutional model as like a superfilter.
Okay.
It takes the raw brainwave data from the EEG or the MEG
Okay.
and pulls out specific patterns connected to like individual key strikes.
Oh, so it's picking out those signals that are basically saying like,
Yeah.
hey, the brain's thinking about hitting the A key.
Exactly, like that.
So what happens next? What happens after that first stage?
All right, so that's where the transformer model kicks in. It's
Right.
all about context now. This stage analyzes the sequence of those keystrokes to figure out how they connect to each other,
Got it.
to form a sentence that actually makes sense.
Wow.
It's like putting together a puzzle, making sure the pieces fit,
Okay.
not just on their own,
Right.
but to create the whole picture.
So it's not just seeing individual letters.
Right.
It's figuring out how they work together to make words and sentences.
Exactly. It's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's impressive. So how does the AI figure out the actual words from those letter combinations?
Right. That's where the language model comes in.
Okay.
It's a 9-gram model trained on a massive amount of Spanish Wikipedia.
Okay.
So it uses all the patterns of the Spanish language
Got it.
to predict the most likely word sequences based on those decoded keystrokes.
So it's like a supercharged autocomplete for your brain
Kinda like that, but way more advanced.
that combines the brain signals with the rules of the language.
Yeah,
So it knows what makes sense and what doesn't.
exactly.
Now, the paper mentions MEG is way better than EE.
Yeah, big time.
Why is that?
It all comes down to the signal. MEG gives you this clean signal with almost no noise,
Oh, I see.
which makes it so much easier for the model to accurately decode those neural patterns.
Got it.
You know, the ones linked to typing. The average character error rate for MEG is about 32%,
Okay.
but for EEG, it's a whopping 67%.
Wow. That's a huge difference. So why even use EG at all?
Well, it's all about practicality.
Oh, I see.
MEG machines are huge and expensive.
Right.
Not really something you can use every day.
Not yet.
Exactly. EEG, on the other hand, is portable and cheaper,
True.
but you sacrifice accuracy.
Okay, so a trade-off.
But the researchers are working on something really cool. Wearable MEG systems using these things called OPMs.
Wearable MEG. That sounds like sci-fi.
I know, right? It's like something out of Star Trek.
It really is. But okay, so for now, MEG is the way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
For this brain decoding thing. And get this.
Okay.
In some cases, they got the character error rate with MEG down to 19%.
Wow.
That's almost perfect decoding.
Really impressive. And it gets even more interesting.
Okay, how so?
The system could decode sentences it had never seen before.
Really?
And it even corrected typos that the participants made.
Hold on, the AI is correcting human errors.
It is pretty wild, huh?
That's both amazing and a little creepy.
I know, right?
So what does that tell us? Oh, go for it.
So, compared to the previous research, what's the main innovation of this paperwork?
That's a great question.
Yeah, let's dig into that a little bit.
Brain 2 QWERTY builds on recent work decoding speech from brain activity.
Defosse et al. Decoded perceived speech from MEG signals.
And Tongue et al. Decoded sentence meaning from fMRI.
But those focused on perceiving language, not producing it like brain 2 QWERTY.
That's key.
Exactly. The novelty here is decoding text production from brain activity as you type.
As for the money in it,
It is about improving communication for motor impaired people.
we're talking those with anartria, ALS, severe paralysis.
The long-term potential is huge.
Now, where were we?
What that tells us about how brain 2 QWERTY is actually working. Is it just mimicking what our fingers do?
Right.
Or is it tapping into something deeper, like the actual words we're thinking?
That's the big question, isn't it?
And the findings suggest it's more than just mimicking our movements.
Okay.
One really interesting piece of evidence comes from looking at the errors and how they relate to the layout of the QWERTY keyboard.
The keyboard layout, what does that have to do with brain activity?
It seems strange, I know.
I know.
But the researchers found the strong link between how far apart keys are on the keyboard
Okay.
and how often the AI messed up when decoding those keystrokes.
So keys that are physically close together
Yeah.
were more likely to be confused by the model?
Exactly.
Like it's mirroring the way our fingers move when we type?
So the AI is picking up on physical act of typing.
It seems like it.
Even though it's just analyzing brain signals,
Right.
that's amazing. It's like our physical actions and our thoughts are way more connected than we realize.
Yeah, there's this deep connection there.
And they took it even further. To really explore this connection, they did a clustering analysis.
Okay, a clustering analysis. What's that?
So imagine embeddings are like a map of how the AI understands the information.
Got it.
It shows the relationships between different data points.
Okay.
In this case, they took the embeddings from that first stage.
The convolutional module.
Right, and they used a clustering algorithm
Okay.
to see how it grouped the different characters.
So what did they find? Did it like put all the vowels together?
Way more interesting than that. When they set the algorithm to make two groups, it perfectly separated the keys you'd normally press with your left hand
Okay.
from the ones you press with your right hand.
Wow. So it rediscovered the QWERTY keyboard just from brain signals.
Pretty much.
Like it learned how we use the keyboard just by looking at our brain activity.
That's insane. It shows how much our interactions with the world shape what's going on in our brains.
Yeah. What about the typos, though?
Yeah, what about them?
Didn't they mess things up?
I would think so.
Yeah.
Actually, quite the opposite. They helped a lot.
Really?
They gave us really valuable insights into what's happening in our brains when we type.
Oh, interesting.
The researchers found that when you make a typo,
Yeah,
it takes twice as long to type that character.
that makes sense. You have to stop and fix it.
Exactly. And that hesitation,
Yeah.
the AI can see it in the brain signals.
Wow. So even our mistakes are data points.
Yeah. And it's not just about the timing.
Yeah.
The typos also make the AI's decoding less accurate.
Really. So it's like the brain is confused for a second.
Exactly.
And that makes it harder for the model to understand what key you meant to press.
Pretty much. It's like the model is saying, aha, I caught you. You meant to type this.
That's so cool. But this brings up a big question.
Right.
If brain 2 QWERTY is so connected to that motor cortex,
Right.
how could it ever work for people who can't physically type?
Right.
You know, like people who are completely locked in.
That is the million-dollar question. And it's a challenge the researchers know they need to address.
Yeah.
Because right now, the model is super dependent on those signals from typing.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Adapting it for those who can't move their fingers would be a huge shift.
Yeah, I imagine.
We might need to teach it to recognize imagine typing
Oh, wow.
or find a way to separate the decoding from those specific motor movements.
That's fascinating. It's a tough problem.
It really is.
But given how far they've already come,
Right.
it doesn't seem impossible.
Definitely not. Yeah, it's a whole new frontier.
Yeah,
It's amazing to think we might be able to communicate just using our thoughts someday.
right. It's mind-blowing.
But let's get into the nitty-gritty of the study.
Okay.
They were really thorough, like they controlled for everything.
Yeah, they were super careful.
They even built a special keyboard.
They did. It was MR compatible.
MR compatible. What does that even mean?
Magnetic resonance compatible.
Oh, right, because of the meg.
Yeah. Normally keyboards mess with the meg signal because of all the metal.
So they had to build one without metal.
Yeah. They replaced the metal springs with silver ones.
Wow, talk about dedication.
That's some serious commitment to good science.
Absolutely. It paid off, though. Their results are incredible.
Yeah, we've talked about the error rate overall, but were there back to our listener. What's up?
Can we focus on the architecture of this work and explain?
Absolutely. Let's zoom in on the brain 2 QWERTY architecture.
Okay. It has the three modules, convolutional, transformer, and language.
The convolution module's first.
Right. It's based on a model by Defosse et al.
It's a modified convolutional model.
Yeah. The first part uses spatial attention.
to encode sensor positions
The second part introduces a subject layer.
for individual differences.
The third is a convolutional neural network.
It has 8 blocks with skip connections.
Finally, the temporal dimension is pooled.
Then comes the transformer module.
Right. It provides sentence-level contextualization.
It helps with decoding characters effectively.
The language model is last.
It's pre-trained and character level.
It uses language statistics to improve decoding.
Yeah, I can definitely dive into the architecture for you.
Let's talk about how Brain2 QWERTY is structured.
So, as we mentioned before, it's a 3-stage deep learning model.
It all starts with the convolutional module.
Right. It's like a filter extracting key info.
Then you have the transformer module handling context.
Yeah, context is everything.
And finally, the language model to clean it all up.
I mean, it's more complicated than that.
Of course.
And in terms of design choices, they did retraining and evaluated different versions of their model.
Right. They looked at the convolutional model without a transformer or language model. That's a good question. They did find some interesting things.
Like what?
Well, for example, words like the or a,
Okay.
those had a really low error rate, only 17%. But rarer characters like Z, K, or W in Spanish, those were barely decoded above chance.
So the AI is better at recognizing common words and letters.
Yeah, it makes sense, right?
It's kind of like how we recognize familiar words faster when we read. They also looked at the conv+ transformer without a language model.
This let them see how each part helps with decoding text.
Overall, this design improves character decoding.
What's fascinating here is how each module adds something.
Yeah.
The transformer is the sentence-level contextualization.
And the language model leverages natural language's statistical regularities.
All of this improves the decoding of individual characters.
Okay, so where were we?
Mm-hmm.
But were there any patterns in the types of errors the model made?
That's a good question. They did find some interesting things. Exactly. It's like it's learning the language in a way.
But is it really learning, or is it just memorizing patterns?
That's the big question. It's probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that it can decode new words and sentences.
Right.
That suggests it's not just memorizing.
Right.
It's using its knowledge of Spanish grammar and syntax.
Oh, so it's like
Yeah.
combining the brain signals with the rules of the language to figure it out. Like what?
Well, for example, words like the or a.
What about them?
You know, common words, the model nailed those.
That makes sense. It's seen them a million times.
Exactly. But it struggled more with out-of-vocabulary words. Exactly. It's like it's learning to read minds by combining brainwaves with linguistics.
That's wild. I'm still stuck on this keyboard thing.
The QWERTY layout?
Yeah. It's so strange that the physical layout of the keys could affect brain activity.
I know, right? It's like our brains are physically mapped to the keyboard.
And the AI can see that map.
It can, but they didn't stop there.
No.
They wanted to understand this connection even better.
Okay, how did they do that?
They did something called an ablation study.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, let's unpack the transformer module a bit more.
Yeah, that's a key part of Brain2 QWERTY, right?
Absolutely. Its main role is to bring context.
Context is everything.
It refines those initial keystroke guesses.
By looking at how they fit together in a sentence.
Exactly. So what's improved with the transformer?
The transformer module really helps decode individual characters.
The sentence-level contextualization contributes to improvements.
The transformer uses contextual information to improve accuracy.
It is also a crucial step for improving performance.
What is the transformer's output?
The output is a sequence of character predictions.
Then, the language model cleans those predictions up.
That's a good segue to what they did to test it.
Oh, you mean that ablation study?
Yeah, let's talk about that now.
Now, where were we?
They did something called an ablation study.
An ablation study, what is that?
It's not as complicated as it sounds.
Okay.
They basically took the model apart piece by piece
Oh, I see.
to see what each part was doing.
So like taking apart a clock to see how it works.
Exactly. They wanted to find out which parts were most important for decoding accurately.
So what did they learn? Which parts were the most important?
Well, they found that all three modules were important. Convolutional, transformer, and the language model.
Right.
The researchers also tested the convolutional module. They looked at the conv plus transformer without a language model.
This let them see how each part helps with decoding text.
All of this improves the decoding of individual characters.
Going back to your question.
Yeah,
That's why the language model is so vital.
exactly. Let's get into some other nitty-gritty details.
Okay.
The paper mentions they used a special process to make sure the data was good.
They did. They used something called rapid serial visual presentation.
That's a mouthful.
It is. Basically, they showed the participants sentences word by word on a screen.
Okay. Why did they do it that way?
A couple of reasons. First, it kept everything standardized.
Okay.
So everyone saw the same thing in the same way.
Got it.
And second, it stopped them from seeing the next word before it appeared.
So they had to process each word one at a time.
Exactly. It helped them isolate the brain activity for each specific word.
That's really clever. So they were trying to create a super controlled environment.
Yes, they wanted to see exactly what was happening in the brain as each word was processed.
Wow. And they didn't stop there.
No.
They had some rules for the typing too, right?
They did. They told the participants not to use backspace.
So they couldn't correct their mistakes.
Nope. They wanted to see how those typos showed up in the brain signals.
Fascinating. So even the mistakes were useful for the research.
Exactly. They were turning errors into insights.
I like that. So what about the sentences themselves?
Okay.
Did they just pick them randomly?
Oh, no. They chose them very carefully.
How so?
They wanted a mix of different sentence structures and types of words.
Okay.
So the AI would be tested on a variety of language.
It's like giving the AI a language exam.
Kind of. They also changed how often certain words appeared.
To see if that affected the decoding.
Exactly. And remember we talked about how the AI is better with frequent words.
Right, so it's learning the statistics of language.
Yeah. It's like a baby learning to talk.
That's amazing. There's one more thing I wanted to ask about.
Okay.
This maximally diverse splitting strategy thing.
Oh, right. That's how they divided the data.
For training and testing the model.
Yeah, they didn't just split it randomly.
Okay.
They used a special algorithm to make sure each set had a variety of sentences.
So the AI wouldn't just memorize specific sentences.
Exactly. It had to learn the general pattern